Here we go. We are here. Brilliant. Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our Ask Us Anything session. And yeah, we're looking forward to answering as many questions as possible and getting to know some of you. Like I said, there is a few names that we've already come across and that we might have spoken to in the last application process, and a lot of new names as well. So looking forward to find out what you guys are working on. So all of you will have probably seen that we are opening applications for the second cohort of the ATI Boeing Accelerator on Monday, the 31st of August. Yes, this is a bank holiday, but you know, we thought, why not give everyone something to do? And we have also published the new themes for this cohort on the website. The last cohort ran from January to March this year, and yeah, it has been a great journey and slightly crazy as well once we got to March with our 9 startups that went through the first program. And it's been quite impressive to see how they, you know, pandemic and all, still managed to get some really, really exciting projects over the line. And you can also read more about them if you want on our portfolio page on the website. They were 9 that we chose out of almost 300 applications. So we're ready to get as many applications as possible this time around as well. But yes, this time we have changed our theme slightly. We are very much focused on sustainability and sort of different areas of that. And also still, I mean, there's still an angle of Industry 4, but with a big lens of sustainability on it. Just a brief introduction into, you know, what is this program even, and then we'll introduce ourselves. So the ATI Boeing Accelerator is a 3-month accelerator program. Next one is running from January 2021 for 3 months. And the focus, or I would say that the main purpose of the program is to put the startups in front of our great sponsors and partners and help them scale their businesses. We also introduce founders to investors if they're raising funding, and also connect them to each other. So we had a few really exciting collaborations happen during the first cohort. So we're hoping that that will be the case in the second cohort as well. And we have a curriculum that will be very much tailored to the cohort that we end up having and choosing end of this year. But like I said, the focus is on scaling your business, your team, and just improving, you know, not just the way you run your business, but also you as a founder, and anything else really you need at that point in time. You will see we're very reactive like that. So intros. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Gabby. I'm the program director of the ATI Boeing Accelerator. I have been running accelerators all over the UK for the past 4 years in different industries and different stages. And before that have had, and I founded my own startup with my co-founders. That startup was in health tech. We raised some funding, we sold into the NHS, and we also went through 2 accelerators ourselves, one of which is Ignite in the UK and also Techstars in New York. And after the team then decided to permanently relocate to the US, I came back to the UK and started running accelerators. So yeah, I think that's a good kind of brief introduction. The ATI Boeing Accelerator itself is or has been created by the ATI, the Aerospace Technology Institute, in partnership with Boeing, who is our platinum sponsor. We also have a gold sponsor, who is GKN Aerospace. And today, from the ATI, we have Noor Eid, who is the program lead for the ATI, and we also have Nicola Bates, who is leading on Horizon X Global Ventures in the UK. Not sure if I got that name right now, but I hope so. And so rebranded recently. And yeah, so we've got a good mix of people here to answer any kind of sort of questions. And I've also got our very own venture and ecosystem director, Will, who works with me on the program team. Will, are you happy to kick off with introducing yourself?
What are you going to do if I say no?
I will mute you and emote you to attendee. I don't.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Like Gabby said, recognize some of the names in the attendees, so great to have you with us. So I'm, as Gabby says, Venture and Ecosystem Director on the program. I spend quite a lot of my time connecting each of the startups on our various cohorts with our investment network, and working with the various stakeholder groups across the 12-week cohort and in between each program. So working with Boeing, GKN, the other kind of various aerospace and non-aerospace entities that we have in the network. Prior to this program, I've been working with Gabby running accelerators across the UK since 2017. And before that, I was a founder, ran my own startup for 4 and a bit years. And I'm also an angel investor personally. So lots of operational experience as well as experience on the investment side. So looking forward to getting to know you all and answering your questions.
Amazing, thank you, Will. Who wants to be next? Nick, Nor?
Go on, Nick, after you.
Hi everyone, I'm Nicola Bates, and as Gabby said, I represent Boeing Horizon X Global Ventures here in the UK, which is the investment arm of the Boeing company. Prior to this role, I did work in the defence business in the UK, and prior to that, did run a startup with my other half back in the UK around the cybersecurity environment. So very connected to the UK startup ecosystem, and I'm very passionate about helping startups actually work with some of the primes. Having been on your side of the table, I know how difficult that is. So that's my passion here, is trying to keep us honest and make sure that we really do everything that we can and take our responsibility to help grow the ecosystem really seriously. So I'm really looking forward to to getting to know you all and working with you and seeing how we as Boeing can best help support the growth of your small businesses, particularly in the UK sector.
Great.
And
Thanks,
Nor?
Nick. So my name is Nor Ease. I'm the program lead of the Accelerator from the ATI. For those of you who don't know who the Aerospace Technology Institute is, we were set up around 6 years ago with an aim to support aerospace R&D in the UK, looking really at providing government funding to support technology development in the UK, also writing the strategy for specific technologies such as composite development, additive manufacturing, autonomy, etc. And in the last sort of 18 months to 24 months, we've been looking specifically at how we can support younger companies in the supply chain and beyond, which is exactly why we started looking at this accelerator program. Before working on the accelerator, I worked within the ATI looking at structures, manufacturing and materials projects. And before that, I was originally working for Airbus in the engineering team in Bristol. So worked for Airbus. I'm now on the ATI Boeing accelerator. So I've played for both teams, and it's really good to find more about the ecosystem. And as Nicola said, looking forward to really learning more about you guys and seeing how we can help you guys in the future.
Thank you, Nor. Awesome. So let's dive right into the questions. Like I said, some of you have sent through some questions in advance. So let's answer those first. Let me just open up the lists. So the first one that I will just answer to begin with is, what's the structure of the program? Is it in person? Understandably something everyone is kind of worried or intrigued about in the current state of the world. So the structure itself, there is basically an ideal plan we would like to follow, and then there's a contingency plan in case that doesn't happen. So ideally the program will be partly in person, partly virtual. Mainly, if you look at kind of the hours spent and the sessions, it is virtual, but there will be a couple of weeks at the beginning of the program that will be a little bit more intense and in person, to give you guys the opportunity to meet each other in person, but also meet our sponsors and some of the partners in person to kick off those relationships, not just on a virtual basis. Those meetings and events and the beginning of the program will still be UK based, not only in London, but also potentially in Bristol or Coventry, Sheffield. We still have to kind of finalize the spots we will go to. But if it's possible, you know, pandemic and all, we would still like to do that and do a little road trip with everyone to get you properly connected into the ecosystem. If that is not possible, as we know, might happen as well, currently very hard to kind of anticipate, the contingency plan is to have a fully virtual program. So I hope that answers the question from whoever sent this one in. If not, feel free to put another question in to dig into anything that I might have said. The next question that we got in advance, Nick, one for you. Can you provide further details about your safe note, please?
Okay, so the safe note is obviously the piece that's published is the £100,000. And what it provides is a 20% discount on the future round. We do have an automatic conversion in there, but that is actually set at a pretty high level. So the theory really behind the safe is to provide an instrument that is really founder friendly. You know, something that isn't going to get in the way for you guys going forward, and it doesn't provide a level of overhead in terms of having to deal with us. So that was really our thinking behind it. Obviously we're always keen to to hear feedback on that, and is there something that would make life significantly better for you guys. So I'm on a personal level always open to hearing feedback on that. But where we're at right now is we think that we've got a fairly founder-friendly document in place, and that's really just so that we can get the money to you quickly, that we can get that in the early stages of the program out to you. You will go through Boeing due diligence. It is a lighter version than it would be ordinarily, but it is obviously still there. So we hope that it's as friction-free as is humanly possible. But of course, these things are never completely frictionless.
100%. And a follow-up question on that was, does the money count towards state aid?
No, it doesn't.
Perfect. All right, next question I have on my list is, do you consider projects outside the aerospace industry? Will, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So we're obviously aerospace focused, being an aerospace program. But part of our mandate or remit is to bring non-aerospace startups and kind of innovative experts into the industry. So as long as the technical solution that you're building is applicable to the UK civilian aerospace market, because we currently focus mostly on the civilian side of the sector, then we'd still be interested in you applying. So yes, no strict limit on just being aerospace focused, because if you're not, we'll help you enter into the market over the course of the program.
And the question that just popped up in the chat as well that kind of fits. What about location? Are applications open for teams outside the UK? Yeah,
so we've had a couple of questions around location. So the program is open to companies globally. In terms of the commitment or time commitment or kind of attention commitment over the course of the 12-week structure, we would require that, or we would ask that we have a member of the senior management team able to commit to the program content. So for example, we're not putting an intern into a meeting with a VC. And obviously that's flexible pending program structure. So if we're fully virtual, then there's less of a requirement of you being able to get to the UK, because we don't know whether you will be able to. And there was one other, there was one other question about location.
You have to be in London, I think.
Yeah, you have to be in London. So as Gabby says, we're thinking of doing the roadshow at the kind of the front of the program. So not necessarily being in London, but traveling around the UK. Again, caveat if we can. But it'll basically depend on what we're allowed to do and what government kind of advice is towards the end of November, early December. So TBC.
All right. Another question that came in advance, and I know there's some other coming up there about the safe note, but we'll get to those, promise, was So we obviously will give you access to the sponsors and partners, but some of the question was, will there be any more networking with industry in general? Nor, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that we really encourage. The ATI is in quite a privileged position to have a really wide-reaching network across the UK and beyond that as well. So we want to make use of that as much as possible within this programme. For the startups who join the cohort, we'll be looking to understand and work with them to find out what their needs are, and who would be best to connect them up with, be that other organisations, research organisations, academia, other experts, consultants. For us, it's really a case of finding out what the needs of you are, what your needs are when you join us, and then hopefully being able to match make you with others across the sector. As a few examples, last year we had fireside chats from really senior members of teams across different companies across the UK. We also had the AGP come in, which is the Aerospace Growth Partnership. We had representatives from the High Value Manufacturing Catapult come in and speak to us as well, sort of fireside chats or lunchtime informal chats. So we want to keep on doing loads of those things and encourage networking as much as possible.
Brilliant, thank you, Noel. And one last question, or one of two last questions that came in advance, was, I want to raise a round in 2021. How can you help with that? Will?
Yeah, great question. So as Gabby kind of touched on in her introduction, we as the program team have been running seed to Series A stage accelerators across the UK since 2011. So there's quite a good network of early stage investors, both angels and VCs, and then later stage through the ATI and Boeing's relationships. So as part of the program curriculum, we'll build the structure based on the cohort, as Gabby said earlier. But part of that is very much getting you ready for spending quite a lot of time with our investment network. So we have lots of kind of speed dating style mentoring with investors from very early in the program. So cohort 1, day 2 of the program, or day 2 and 3, our 9 companies met 35 mentors over the course of 2 days. I think half of them were investors. So it's definitely throwing you in at the deep end, but that's a good way of building the relationships quickly. And then towards the tail end of the program, around kind of weeks 10 and 11, we do what we call investor lunches, which is matching you with investors based on your type of business, the stage of your business, and what you're looking to raise from an investment point of view. You stand up and do a very quick informal pitch, and then everyone sits down and has a nice lunch. That's been a really effective part of historical programs where we've been matching startups with investors who go on to invest into the businesses. Again, obviously that'll depend on whether we actually can do that in 2021. If not, we'll do it virtually. But there's a lot of scope for introducing you to investors very kind of early on in the program.
Great, thank you. Okay, so there's a few questions you guys asked in the chat that tie into another question around application process. There's actually 3 now about that topic. So one we've got from Nicole, which is, what does the application process look like? And then we have Jocelyn asking, is there an art in the application? What is a good application? What do you like to see? So let me talk you through the application process first. Those that have applied last time around will notice once the application form goes live that it has changed slightly. So there it is a little bit more in depth, and we're asking questions a lot more directly rather than kind of asking for a broad overview of the business. For Jocelyn's question, I would say my biggest piece of advice is answer the questions, like really answer them, and you know, focus on, when you answer the questions, focus on, you know, really bringing across why your business is a good fit for the accelerator. So let's say you are not from aerospace, you're from a different industry. Make sure you bring across how the application in aerospace looks like or might look like. Make sure you have spoken to people in the space, and even though you know, you might not have lots of traction in aerospace yet, make sure to list, all the things you might have done in that other industry that prove that your technology is useful. The application process itself starts with the application form, like I said, slightly more intimidating, but don't worry, you guys can do it. And once you've submitted that, it goes straight to the program team and the ATI, and also the sponsor. We filter applications in the first stage to figure out which ones are in scope and actually fit into our themes that we've mentioned earlier that you can find on the website. And if your application fits into the theme and you're in the right stage, which in this program again is between seed and Series A-ish, we then review the application further and might also get in touch with you for some follow-up questions and a brief kind of telephone interview. And something we didn't have last time, what we're doing this time, is we're actually then giving those applications to our application committee. The application committee consists of the program team as well, who kind of reviews it on a more sort of business level, but we also have technical experts and experts from both the sponsor and the ATI giving us input on, how unique is the technology and how much of a good fit is this business for someone like Boeing to run POCs with or do projects with. So very early on, we're having those conversations because the purpose of the program, and I'm sure all of you agree, is for you to end up either doing business with one of our sponsors or someone else in the network. But yeah, we're trying to get those questions in very early on and start up those conversations and connections months even before the program even starts. Once we have basically created a list of companies that are applicable and in the right stage, we then have our committee themes meetings where our committee members look at all the applications in the specific themes to rank them and make sure that we have a good overview of what stages everyone is in. The best ones from those then are longlisted and move forward to more review. So you might have calls with the ATI at that point for more technical interviews. And once that's done, we decide in a meeting who is going to be shortlisted for selection day. So the last stage is our selection day, which this year is happening on the
2nd and 3rd of December.
2nd and 3rd of December, where virtually you will be pitching in front of the ATI, the sponsors, and the program team to, just fight for those 10 spots, basically. And you would have the results and know if you have been chosen to be part of the cohort on the 4th, so a day after the selection days. The full process is virtual. I think that might have been a question as well. And I know this now sounded like a very, very long process. It is, but more for us than for you, don't worry. So we're hoping to kind of keep the meetings to a minimum and get as much as we can or need from you already in the application form, really, which is why it's a little bit more complex this time. On the website, on the FAQ, you can find dates. So we have put down dates for you to orient yourself on. So until what date will I be notified about being longlisted? Until what date will I be notified about being shortlisted? And when will I find out if I have been chosen for the cohort? Right. I hope that was all about applications.
The only other thing that you've not covered, George has asked, are acceptances on a rolling basis?
If the applications are on a rolling basis.
Yeah.
So we're opening on the 31st of August next week, and the applications will only be open for 4 weeks. So we're closing again on the 27th of September. That's currently the closing date. After that date, you cannot apply anymore for this upcoming cohort. So make sure to get your applications in rather earlier than later. Yeah, great. So which one do we do next? How about the themes? Could you please speak more about the sustainability element of your focus? Noor, would you be comfortable talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've just seen our themes, which have been published on our website now. So sustainability for us is a huge focus, and it sort of underpins all of the sub-themes that we've got throughout, for the very reason that before March, before COVID sort of struck, sustainability was on top of the agenda with everyone that we spoke to in the sector, including our sponsors, including on the programme, just everyone. So even more so when we've been speaking to people and talking about their recovery following COVID-19, sustainability is still very high, if not top of the agenda, as companies try and figure out how to be more sustainable going forward, and how to manufacture and maintain their aircraft, their components as sustainably as possible. So for us, it's really top of our agenda and underpins everything. And if you've got a technology or an interesting capability which you think fits under one of those sub-themes, then we'd certainly be really interested to hear from you.
Great. And then there's a question that ties into that. I see a number of relevant themes, relevant areas with the briefing documentation. Should we be focusing on one, two, or cover a number of them?
Yeah, I saw that question as well. I think it's from Alex at Additive Flow. So I would suggest just being as sort of open and frank as possible, and saying which of the areas you feel you're most related to. We had a tricky tricky direction of the themes to not be too prescriptive, but to be as broad and open to get as many great technologies and ideas from you guys as possible. Gabby's disappeared, but hopefully she comes back.
Hopefully.
So on that point, just let us know which area is most relevant to your technologies. If it's more than one, then just let us know. But just to say, just yeah, let us know, and be an open, as frank as possible with where you think you fit most.
Thank you, Noor. Great. Before we continue with some of the typed questions, Roy, I will unmute you, so feel free to ask your question now. If you unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Will.
Hi, Roy.
I was talking to Will yesterday. Our technology is subject of two separate patent families. The first family is purely software-based. The second is software plus hardware. We also have a range of other intellectual property rights. And I was just listening when you were saying about technical experts, being involved in evaluation and so forth. I am elected as an associate at the Chartered Institute of Patent Attorneys, and I'm wondering, will there be somebody who specializes, or at least is, involved in intellectual property to discuss that with us? Because it's not something that would just be ordinarily understood.
Yeah, thank you, Roy.
Question.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, part of the curriculum is IP, definitely. So last cohort we had a IP specialist from GKN, Udo Akoka, do a session and also do one-to-one office hours with the teams to just dig into any kind of questions they might have on a kind of more aerospace IP level. And then we also have partnerships with law firms to talk you through kind of any more legal element of that, and assist you in any kind of.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean that we would require guidance on it. We have the expertise. What I meant was, is there somebody?
Oh, Roy, are you still with us? No. Anyone else have an answer to that? I might have misunderstood the question.
Sorry, we seem to have lost connection there.
Yes, you're back now.
We've got a terrific thunderstorm raging here, and I think it's interfering with the internet.
Oh no.
Just started, it's colossal. I'm just looking out the window, it's amazing. Anyway, so I'm not sure what you heard and what you didn't hear. What I said, Gabby, was we don't need to have guidance from people about intellectual property, we have that expertise, okay, in patents and trademarks and copyrights and so forth. I was just trying to find out whether the panels that look at this thing will want to discuss that with us, because, you know, it's a refined area that isn't normally part of a due diligence process. You know, it doesn't come up that often, especially with software. Software patenting is complicated and unusual.
Okay. I think it might come up, but not sort of in a very in-depth way, at least for us, for the initial screening. I'm not sure about the review that Boeing does later on. Nick, do you have a comment on that?
So I think that it really works on a case-by-case basis. You know, where we feel that we need to pull in more technical and IP specialists, obviously we can do as that's needed. You know, it won't apply for everyone. It'll just really depend on the individual scenario.
Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Roy. I will meet you again. We have some more questions on the writing, and we'll make sure to answer those. Thank you for dialing in.
Okay.
We had some more investment questions, so take a quick run through those.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So Manuel's asking, does the due diligence happen during the selection process, and is it possible to participate even if one is not interested in the SAFE? So yes, the reason the application process takes a bit of time is that we try and do as much DD ahead of offering you a program place and then passing you over to Boeing to do the financial due diligence. So there's varying levels, but the DD will start as soon as you submit an application, and then we'll just go up a notch once you accept a program place and go over to Boeing. And Nick, is it possible to participate even if one is not interested in the SAFE note?
Absolutely. We're keen to have all you guys involved, and you know, we're not going to stand it in the way for a really great team to join the program if they don't want to take the investment. And we're also happy to give you all the support that we can, even if we're not making the investment.
Awesome. And then Olivia's asked, are you looking for companies that have already received investment? From Cohort 1, we've had a range of companies at a range of stages, from a two-man founding team who were pretty early on in the process through to a team of kind of 30 plus who've raised a bunch of money. So the short answer to the question is no. You can be kind of early stage, having not raised any capital, through to having raised a bunch. Depends on what you're doing and how you're spending it. And then Tim's asked, is the program only open to startups looking for VC funding? We're not looking for funding, but rather we're more interested in accessing the market and the customers.
Yeah, VC funds, not funding. Yeah. VC
funds. So yeah, again, I will probably kind of answered that already, but the short answer is no. We're looking for anyone that's going to do interesting things for the UK civilian aerospace market. So come on over and apply.
And we will introduce you to VC funds, not only for you to raise money from, but we can introduce you to them if they are part of your client base too.
Exactly. Yeah. You're muted, Gabby.
That's fine. I didn't say anything productive. I was just saying there are so many questions now. Let's go with Gareth. Will you consider applications from drone, eVTOL, or airspace management offers? Noor, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so it's a difficult one. I think we're ultimately looking for companies and startups who can develop a proof of concept, predominantly with our sponsors, Boeing and GKN, and at the moment, they're obviously focusing on the civil aerospace world. That's not to say if you do have a technology which is sort of a subsystem of a drone, it might be sort of the electrical side or the autonomy side or something that fits within our themes, then it's something that you might apply into. But our primary focus at the moment isn't with drones.
Great. That's really helpful. Let's mark that as done. Do you help with visa applications? The delivery partner, Ignite, we are a visa partner and have historically helped with exceptional talent visas of participants for our programs. We're currently waiting on getting confirmation if that will still be the case for January, just because, well, not only is the world ending, but then there's also the B word I'm not going to say now. So we'll have to wait and see, but we will in the next month. So we will know more about that side of things in the next month. But strictly speaking, because the program isn't fully in person for a full 3 or 4 months, to participate, you probably wouldn't need a full visa. But yeah, thank you. Oh, Will, you said you would answer. Sorry, I didn't see that. You can mark it as done. Okay. What do we have here? Robert, let's go into some of yours. What level of technical support is available from Boeing and GKN engineers? Is there a list of names or roles? Nick?
There isn't a list of names or roles at this stage, and that's really because if you look at the themes, they are ridiculously wide, and obviously we have lots and lots of very clever people across all of those themes. So really what will happen is we have chosen some champions across each of those themes, and as we begin to go through that down select, we will then begin to identify the specific areas of technical expertise that we're going to need help and advice from, depending on the companies that we actually end up with in the cohort. So it really is a work in progress, and it's not something that we can do ahead of time. It really does depend on exactly what you guys need once we get you into the cohort.
Great. And while we have you, Nick, we have a question. Has Boeing changed its criteria for approving projects or working with startups? Not quite sure I know what is meant, but maybe you do.
No, I'm not really clear on what that question means. But as far as Boeing Horizon X Global Ventures goes, there's been no change in terms of how we work with our portfolio companies. The teams, we've done there has been a level of of restructure moving around, but ultimately the service to our portfolio hasn't changed. There's still funding there, there's still projects ongoing, so entirely as it always was.
Awesome, thank you, Nick. And then we have Boeing and GKN as sponsors. Are they the only potential clients, or will we have chance to access all aerospace companies in the UK?
Yes, I can answer that one. So as I mentioned before, we're trying to provide access to as many relevant aerospace companies around the UK as well. So Boeing and GKN will be the sort of most obvious potential end user as their sponsors on the program, but we sort of want that to be as open as possible. And if there's someone that you really want to work with, then hopefully we can make a connection and make an introduction.
Yeah, and I've just to add to that, we're really keen. Obviously we're coming from this as the investors, as the investment part of Boeing. So from our perspective, we're really keen to see you work with all parties across the aerospace sector, not just with us. And even if that is, some of the learnings that that Cohort 1 found was that actually they didn't want to be a Boeing supplier. They fit somewhere else in the supply chain. And what we can help you do is help you find that place in the overall aerospace supply chain. And if we can't reach those customers that you guys want to work with, our industry colleagues, whether it's GKN or through the wider ATI network, we're really keen to help you make sure that that you reach all of those places where your business best fits in the overall sector.
Thank you, Nick. That's great. We have one question as well. Do we get office space? So if we are able to do as planned and have a partly in person and partly remote program, we will offer a membership to a co-working space to you and 2 to 3 kind of members of the team in total. which I think, yeah, is just reflecting the sort of need of more flexibility rather than having a fixed office that then no one goes to. But again, it will depend on how the overall program then ends up looking. We will know this as soon as we get closer to the end of the year, hopefully. So manufacturing rarely isolates hardware and software, and our business is no different. While we are a software business, it is pre-integrated with hardware. Are these businesses still in scope for the program? Anyone would like to take that one?
Yeah, I think that was from Robert. Hi, Robert. Good to hear from you again. Hope you're well. So yeah, this is certainly a tricky one. The reason we went for software startups and having a software focus at the moment is that we're trying to develop a proof of concept within 12 weeks. And that obviously is much easier with software programs than it is with hardware developments, which have a sort of longer development cycle. That's not to say if you have a hardware, your hardware solution that might be specified or complete and you want to develop the software elements of it, we want to hear from you, but that's just giving you a bit of an idea of where we're coming from, because we want to ultimately develop a proof of concept within 12 weeks time. But yeah, completely agree. It is in many cases difficult to isolate the software and hardware element. But if you feel like you're in that gap, just encourage you to give us a shout and speak to us a little bit more.
Great, thank you, Noel. Then we have, what state of startup are you expecting? Can you clarify in terms of product maturity rather than just funding round, as high tech tends to be different to others? Will, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So we describe the program as seed to Series A, but what we actually mean by that is we're looking for companies with a product that's ideally been tested in a market already. So as we were saying earlier, it doesn't necessarily have to be aerospace. It could be an adjacent sector. So I think from the 9 companies on the first cohort, half of them were outside of aerospace, coming from automotive, manufacturing, oil and gas, pure tech. But what we're ideally looking for is a product that is live in a market. There's ideally some form of traction. Doesn't necessarily have to be revenue or commercial traction, but someone in a larger than you company has seen the product, tested it, and hopefully paid for it too. And the reason for saying that is that, as Noel was saying, we're trying to get you to a proof of concept with one or both of the sponsors over the course of the 12 weeks. And if your product isn't quite mature enough yet and hasn't been market tested, we're likely not going to be able to do that within the scope of the program. So if the product is slightly more developed, then we're more able to kind of push you further within the time that we have with you.
Okay, thank you, Will. What else do we have here? Oh, we've actually got a hand raised. Jeremy, are you ready to talk? Well, ready or not, I will allow you to talk.
Yes, I am.
Hi.
Nice to see you all. My question is a bit wide, but basically we are in an industry, at least the aviation industry, that has been very strongly impacted by the COVID. For instance, we are productivity tools, and this year has been very difficult for us, since there has been, the productivity has not really been a problem that has faced a lot of company in the industry. And my question was the following. So once again, it might be a bit off track, but how do you see a little bit the future of the industry? Because I guess that this will also have an impact on the selection of startup that you will do. How do you see, the industry moving forward in the next year or two?
I can start, Jeremy. That's a really interesting question. I think depending on who you speak to, you'll get different viewpoints. To summarize, there's obviously, as you know, a huge impact, and we continue to see that impact on the aerospace sector and in aviation in general. There will be a return to normal at some point, and that dip might last 1, 2, 3, even 4 years and beyond. We just don't know, and there's obviously going to be plenty more impacts as some of the government schemes around Europe come to an end, like furloughing in the UK and other sort of government support mechanisms in France and Germany. So yeah, there is going to be an impact. How widespread and how challenging that impact will be, I think we'll see in the coming months and years. The second part of your question was, will that affect our view on selecting startups? Again, an interesting question. We have to, at this point in time, see everything with a lens of the impacts of COVID. So we will sort of bear that into consideration, and we'll see what your, what your technology develops, how it can support our sponsors, and as I said before, how you're able to develop a proof of concept in that first quarter next year. So yeah, it's certainly on our minds, and we're sort of making plans of what the program looks like and how we go forward as a result of it. So I hope that answers your question a little bit there, Jeremy.
It does. It does. Thank you.
Thank you, Noor. Will, you wanted to answer one of the questions?
Yeah, and I've noticed Nick wants to respond to one of the other Q&As as well. So I'll take this one and then I'll pass over to Nick. Manuel has asked, on the website you have several themes but without any descriptive details. Would it be possible to check if there is an alignment of the startup's product, service or solution and the accelerator's selection criteria to ensure relevance? It's a great question. There's a bit more detail in the FAQ, which again you can find on the website. But over the next probably week or so, starting from Monday, Tuesday, we're going to start publishing long form blog posts on the program blog, which you can find on Medium. We'll be doing a post for each theme or thematic bucket, and that will be a bit more kind of detail around what we're looking for and what we mean by each of the 3 buckets. So if you're not following us on Twitter or subscribe to the newsletter, please do so. We're at UK Aero Excel on Twitter, and you can find the link to sign up to the newsletter on the website, and we'll publish everything there first.
Thanks, Will. Nick?
Yeah, so Richard asked a question about COVID compliance, and is that a suitable theme? And my view is that does fall firmly under our theme that we've called operational resilience. So yes, of course, we're very aware that COVID is an issue for aerospace, and obviously we're open to seeing some great ideas around that as well, to help us return to full service. So definitely keen to see those applications from you all.
Thank you, Nick. One more question from the chat. Can you outline a list of activities that will be delivered virtually and the list of activities that will be delivered in person? So one thing to note is that we always design our programs and curriculums with the cohort in mind. So at this point, we do have kind of a rough overview of what we would like to do and bits and pieces that we know have worked quite well with the last cohort. But the curriculum will be very much tailored to you and what it is you need. So if it's more about the differentiation between in-person and virtual, the in-person stuff will be more around mentoring, the kind of element around relationship building, the sales workshop, for example, which is a standard kind of part of the curriculum. There might be elements of that are in person because they work a little bit better. And obviously, if we can have a demo day in end of March or beginning of April that is in person, then pitch training would be in person as well. But in terms of other content, we've done a lot around, like I mentioned earlier, so sales training up to kind of training around marketing, around team culture, around financial modeling, pricing, all of those things that those teams at that particular point in time needed help with. We have regular check-in points. So you have regular check-in points with us, the program team, where you basically can ask for those things, and also in advance of the program when we do our deep dives with every company. One thing to note in that respect is also that you as a founder, for example, might feel like some of the content would be more relevant to one of your co-founders or even employees, and that's absolutely fine for us. We're happy for you to have someone else attending those sessions if the content is particularly relevant for that position or role. The only thing we really need the founder for is kind of the relationship building when we introduce you to the sponsors and kick off those relationships. But otherwise, we're kind of happy for you to split your time in a way that makes sense for you. And I think there was a question very early on, we skipped as well, around how intensive the curriculum is. I think there's going to be stuff to do, and it's always hard. I mean, there's always founders that go away from a program and say, "Oh, that was quite intense," and there's others that say, "I wish there had been more." So it's really, really hard to get it right. But one thing we do try to do is, like I said, to give you the flexibility to, split the responsibility in your team, and also tell us what it is that you actually need, rather than having to sit through things that aren't relevant for you. So yeah, I think
we've also got content gaps during the program curriculum where you have dedicated time off to focus on getting stuff done. We know what it's like, having Gabby and I both been through accelerators as founders, that you need some time to actually do some work. So yeah, all of our structures or all of our programs are built with that in mind. Yeah.
And there's, I think, at least a week, a month where you maybe have a call or two, but not much more. So if that helps kind of to release any kind of panic. And yeah, I think that was it in terms of the curriculum. Sorry if I forgot anything. The chat is getting a bit chaotic now, so feel free to put your question in again if we missed it. Sorry about that. Okay, what else do we have here? Will there be any events in advance of the program? Yes, there will be. So this is the first one in a kind of short series of events. We will have a female founders in aerospace and sustainability event in September. We will have hopefully another session like this with more of our sponsors. And then in October, we will also have an investor event to engage the investors in our network. And what we usually do in those investor events is open up a few slots for startups to pitch at. So yeah, keep your eyes open, and make sure to sign up to a newsletter to don't miss any of those. That sounded like a marketing plug. Sign up to my channel here. No, but yeah, definitely worth doing, because there'll be some exciting stuff coming up. And then, will there be opportunity to work with GKN or Boeing on case studies at their sites? GKN's new Bristol Center and Boeing's Sheffield manufacturing site. We are keen to work on component redesign project, but not sure from your themes if this is included. Norm?
Yes, the answer is yes, absolutely. An example from Cohort 1, one of the company's Orphan Ties, Andre, fantastic founder from Orphan Ties, is doing some work with the guys at GKN and looking to do some pilots at their new Global Technology Centre to GTC in Bristol. So yes, the answer, we actually really encourage that.
Amazing. How advanced should the proof of concept be? Do you expect a functioning prototype? Nick, maybe for you from an investment perspective?
Yeah, so what we need to see is something that we can actually deliver into the business and let them see the real benefit of your solution. So yes, functioning prototype it is probably as early as we can go. Obviously, the more mature it is, the better. It's a much easier sell for us. If you've already demonstrated the capability somewhere else, and this is an opportunity to kind of redo that in the aerospace sector. That's the ideal scenario. But equally, I don't want to rule anything out, given how early stage we did take some companies last time. I don't want to rule that out either. For those real killer applications, don't let that put you off. If you are, as long as you guys understand where you are in the process, I suppose, is the important thing. What I don't want is you to have an expectation of a POC whenever your application or your product isn't quite there yet. So we're willing to be flexible on that, and it's really about keeping the expectations you know, everyone on the same page, you know, in that regard, going forward. So don't let it put you off, but ideally, yes, something that we can actually demonstrate to the business.
Thank you, Nick. And we are almost out of time, but I would like to take the last question here that came in the chat, because I think it's a really important one by George, about, you know, those companies that might not make it onto the program, because 9 teams out of 300, that is tough competition. Does the ATI Boeing have further avenues to pursue for those who do not join the cohort? So we do try to point the teams that we can't take on the cohort into the right direction to kind of other potential clients, or kind of the ATI and their network, to help them, you know, in a different way rather than with the program. And sometimes that is even a better fit if they are in the wrong stage. And I mean, we've also seen companies apply in the last cohort that might have even been a little bit too advanced, that ended up doing work with our sponsors anyways. So it'll depend on a case-to-case basis how much we can help, but we do really, really want to either way. So any additions from anyone else for that?
Yeah, Gabby, just on that, you know, I think that, and someone else asked earlier about things that you like to see in the application form. I think the more explicit that you guys can be with us about what you want, or who you need to work with, or who you need us to connect you with, the more explicit you can be with us, it's so much easier for me to be able to say to my team, okay, get me a contact in this area of the business. You know, that's dead easy. Whereas if I have to sit and think about where you would fit in the business, that takes so much more time when there is a large number of applications. And as Gabby said, last time around, you know, we did try to support everyone that applied to the accelerator in some way, whether that was a simple connection to someone else, or a referral onto a different program. You know, we had a lot the last time that actually fit with some of our airline partners rather than at the OEM level, and making some of those connections. So yes, we're happy to do that. And obviously for those of you that are at the fundraising stage, looking at that, you know, that kind of larger round of investment, do get in touch with us as well. You know, we're always assessing companies, and you know, like to keep in touch with you all to see how you're getting on, and where we might fit in that fundraising mix for you at a later stage.
Great, thank you, Nick. George, we said this was the last question. Now he sent another one in, but it's a quick one. Do you accept 2 potential competitors? Like I mentioned earlier, we do try to rank the companies in kind of their buckets and categories, so to avoid that, so you don't have to basically fight for the same projects with the people on your cohort. Okay, I think that's it. If we forgot anything or missed any of the questions, please feel free to book in for office hours with us. You can find the link on the website. We've opened more slots in September, and I'm happy kind of to discuss any questions you might have about the application or the network or anything else. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Noor. Thank you, Will. This was great. Thank you also for those that have been brave enough to dial in and speak to us. And yeah, looking forward to seeing all those applications come in.
Yeah, give us some work to do next week.
Exciting times.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, been great speaking to you all. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.